we will have time at the end. So I will leave like about sort of 15, 20 minutes so that there's time to answer any sort of Q&As that you might have as well. And I know Tamika sent through some already for me, so there's quite a lot of questions, but lots of them will probably cover during the presentation as well. So actually you may have a few less by the end of things anyway. So let's get going. So just to give you a tiny bit of background information about me and sort of where I've come from. So I've come from a recruitment background and worked in the industry for about 12 years before I ended up retraining and getting into marketing and social media. And really, I think stemming from my sort of recruitment background, LinkedIn was my sort of specialist area of interest. So I work with lots of different businesses and individuals, helping them with their LinkedIn. So, oh, can somebody turn their microphone down?
I'm sorry, Manisha, could you turn your mic off, please?
Brilliant, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, just that I've worked with lots of different individuals and businesses, sort of helping them really sort of utilize LinkedIn. So helping them with their visibility and sort of getting the best experience out of it, and also working with businesses so that they can also have the right strategy in place to make sure that their content is getting seen, to raise sort of brand awareness and find the right leads. So I don't think I probably need to explain in too much detail why LinkedIn is so important. It's obviously a really sort of crucial platform for networking and job opportunities. But some of the action that you can take on LinkedIn is what is, I suppose, most important in terms of you trying to find the right opportunities and connecting with the right people. So your profile and optimizing your profile is extremely important. And if you're looking for a job or opportunities at the moment, those who've got an optimized profile have 71% higher chance of finding and securing a job interview. 93% of recruiters use LinkedIn to find potential candidates and job seekers. And an optimized profile will help your profile rank higher in LinkedIn searches. So if employers or recruiters are looking for particular candidates, then having that optimized profile is going to really sort of like help give you a head start over other people. So I'm going to take you through and show you some ways that you can do that. So these are the things that we're going to cover today. So looking at your LinkedIn profile, sort of making some simple steps to either sort of refresh it or to create it. Talking a little bit about networking and sort of opportunities, and then just giving you some practical tips as well about how you can showcase sort of what you do and your skills, and then we'll come to the Q&A at the end. So the first thing, and this might seem really obvious, but you'll be, well, perhaps not surprised, or you might be surprised at how many people don't think about how they sort of present their profile, and how this is kind of like your shop window to potential employers. So you want to create a really good impression. So some of the things that you must, like the three most like basic essential things that you need to do is obviously have a good profile photo, nice and clear. To have not necessarily a branded banner, and lots of you will be perhaps looking for your first job or maybe sort of second job, and you may not be affiliated to any particular company, but you could actually create something that is personalized and that tells people a little bit more about you. So you've got that banner space on your profile that you can use to give a little bit of additional information. And because it's kind of the first thing that you land on when you hit a personal profile, it's quite eye-catching, and it can kind of convey messages really quickly. So obviously, looking at mine seems to be quite different from yours, because I do LinkedIn training and sort of content and strategy. So I make sure that I've mentioned those things on my profile, that I've got a photo, I've got somewhere a little pointer there where people can know how to get in touch and email me, and it's all branded in my colors. So if you're looking, you haven't got any particular personal brand or anything, it's just something I would create something quite simple and just maybe have some sort of clear kind of like messaging there. But I will show you some more examples, a few slides along, of things that you can do to try and create something similar. Headline is obviously really important as well, and we'll come on to that and why that's so vital. But that kind of headline under your name should really sort of tell people a little bit more about what you do. What are your main skills, what type of role you do, but also you can add a little bit of personality into that as well. So it kind of brings it to life a bit. And it's not just the same then as everybody else is on LinkedIn. So we're going to look at some of those features and why they're important and how you can kind of really sort of optimize those. Again, some of this might seem really simple, but you'll be surprised at how many people kind of sometimes get this or can get this wrong. And lots of you might be working in sort of like creative fields. So actually, on occasion, it's fine to have slightly more innovative and sort of creative headshots. But on the whole, I would say as a rule of thumb, think about, having a sort of really clear headshot. Make sure that you kind of avoid any distracting backgrounds, any sort of like filters, patterns that are in the background or with what you're wearing, selfies, anything that's just kind of unrelated themes. I've seen lots of things where maybe people are like at a wedding or on holiday on the beach. It's really sort of like about you and sort of what you do. And depending on what career sort of like you and field you work in, occasionally those things might be relevant. But if they're not, I would say on the whole, avoid them. So just try and keep it professional. Smiling is good as well because it looks nice and welcoming. Make sure to try and use sort of good lighting, and it's absolutely fine to just use a mobile image. It doesn't have to be like a professional image at all. If you're sort of creating something like on Canva, so like I've done here, 4 by 400 pixels, that works really well. So we're talking about like personalized banner again. So we've got the dimensions here so that if you use an app like Canva, where it's really easy to create and you can have a free account just to create the right sort of dimensions and add photos and personalize it. That's a really sort of easy way to do that. And obviously, if you're starting out and looking for a job, you're not going to have the same type of banner or space or use it in the same way that I might be here with mine, because I've obviously got currently for working and in this particular role. So this is where I'm established and trying to, highlight some of the things that I do. So instead, like think about things that you could use to sort of highlight some of your skills and what you do and kind of what you're looking for, and just use it in a more like creative way, but to kind of get people's attentions if they're looking, particularly like recruiters, that you are, looking for a job and sort of making it very clear about sort of what you do. If there's any sort of like text on the banner, just make sure that it's kind of really sort of direct and to the point. So not too kind of like waffly or fluffy or too small. Just keep it so it's easy to read, and over on the right hand side so that it's very clear on both the mobile and also the desktop version, because they look quite different on both sort of versions of LinkedIn. If, for instance, I wanted to sort of show you, if I was searching, so imagine I was a employer or as a recruiter and I'm searching for somebody who might be like a marketing executive or assistant, and I was pulling up a search, this on the right hand side would be what it would look like. So I've used this really to sort of show you why your headline is so vital, because it's a really, really key part of your profile, and it's almost like your kind of like text form elevator pitch. So what it says there, it kind of lets people know about what you do, but it can give a bit more information than that. So the first headline, so your headlines, or wherever you sort of move around LinkedIn. So if you're sending people kind of messages in the DMs, or if you're commenting on people's posts, that headline follows you around. So you kind of want to utilize it as much as you possibly can to make sure that it kind of stands out and lets people really instantly kind of know who you are and what you do. So those examples on the right are all kind of like how it would come up if I pulled a search up, and this is how it would appear and I was looking at that. So if I was a recruiter, at a glance, some of those instant sort of impressions would be, for me, someone like Tegan Hill, their marketing assistant. So I can see very clearly she's a marketing assistant, she's a content created, and she's got the open to work banner on, so maybe someone good to contact, or perhaps the one below that. So Joe F. Grave, his photo in yellow, that background is quite, stands out. And again, he's put very clearly that he's a digital marketing manager, specializes in social media, and he's an SEO expert. So I can see like instantly kind of what he does, but it's a little bit more than just marketing assistant. So think about how you can use kind of the role that you do and what you're looking for, and how you can be a little bit more creative just to kind of make that stand out on a search, so that you're going to be the person who, not only for your skills, but at a glance, somebody is going, that's going to draw people's attention and make it more eye-catching, and for them to want to find out a little bit more about you. Sort of the more kind of like attention grabbing and sort of unique you can make it, but obviously specific to what you do, can really sort of help you to get noticed on LinkedIn by the right people. So if you're networking, if you're commenting on people's posts, as well as it for search purposes, it can really sort of help you to kind of stand out more just than the next person. So it's really important. I wanted to show you some sort of more examples just to give you a bit more of a flavor of what you potentially could do with your banner and your kind of headline. So here's one example here of someone called Alex Carter. He very clearly, you can see, is a video content marketer. And he's used his banner in the background so that you can really quickly get a sense of what Alex does. So he said about turning you into a trusted voice with killer video content. So it sounds like it's, he makes video content and it's going to make sort of a really big kind of impact with what he does. And he's also used some social proof there. So he's taken some quotes from some of his clients, I would assume, where he said, so it's almost unfathomable how much growth we saw. I got a lead from my first video. So two sort of quotes there, which just kind of give you a little sense of the benefit of working with Alex. And it's got a photo there, image obviously on the banner showing Alex videoing. So you can kind of like really quickly understand and know what he does. So his is really clear. And he's got like a little kind of like playing on words on what he does. So amplifying your authority with video. So it kind of like gives you a good sense of how you can really sort of raise your profile using video, and turning you into an industry trusted voice through killer video content that converts. So he very clearly kind of gives you a quick summary about what he does, why, and what impact it makes. So the next one, this is a lady called, not sure why my voice is echoing there. Hopefully it stopped. The next one is a lady called Kelly Cookson. Again, in her name, she's actually used that bit there to add marketing pro. So again, anyone that she's sort of commenting on LinkedIn or sending messages to instantly knows Kelly is something to do with marketing. And she's used here about she helps service providers double their revenue using email. She's obviously, you can see at the bottom there's a link saying electric email is open. So that's obviously something you can click through and find out a little bit more about. And she's used an example there really cleverly about saying, with some emojis to kind of give a bit more context, about 2 hours a week email strategy for 10 times the amount of sales. And again, she has used her banner so that it's kind of like branded in her sort of colors. And she's got a clear kind of piece of text here, just talking, or to let anyone who lands on her sort of headline on her profile to know that she helps people with emails and content and does sort of 90% of the writing for you. So again, very sort of clear kind of what she's done, and the sort of playful kind of headline there to kind of like demonstrate what she does and how she does it. Heather, so a little bit different this time, a graphic designer. Hers is more kind of simple, but in her kind of branding, you can see what she's wearing there in her like photo that she's got leopard print, and you can also see in her design on her banner that there's some sort of leopard print running through there. So that's obviously like a theme in her particular branding. And hers got her name and the word designs. It's got her website address. So what she does, graphic design, website, and brand identity, and talks about making your branding sparkle. She's added a little bit of social proof there as well by saying she's a multi-award winning web designer, and she talks about who she helps. So busy entrepreneurs taking the stress and overwhelm out of tech in their business with user-focused websites and awesome branding. So for lots of you, this might not be applicable yet because you might be looking for your first job or like your next job. But think about how you can sort of use the skills that you've got and what you're looking for to kind of make bring that kind of headline to life a bit. So it's more interesting than you're just like a marketing assistant or a design executive or whatever, an admin assistant, whatever the role is. There's ways of you bringing that to life and making it a bit more interesting, or you could add a little bit of humor and personality in there as well. But it just kind of showcases you and helps you sort of elevate your kind of profile a little bit more than the next person. So this one, Wayne, again, just showing you that the sort of branding is all kind of like the colors all kind of tying in kind of nicely. And again, very quickly, you could see what Wayne does. So he does online course creation. He does done for you packages. You can see the platforms he uses there listed underneath. And you can also see he's got like a little box in the left-hand corner saying that he's got a live demo that you can access now about growingmycourse.com. And there's a link under the bottom of his profile that you can click through and go on to that to have a look. His is probably more simple, his headline. So it's just very sort of direct, the online course developer for coaches and consultants. So you're in no doubt who his ideal sort of like customer and target audience is. So coaches and consultants, people who want passive income by sort of creating a course that people can then obviously just sort of click on while they're working away doing other things.
Sorry to interrupt you, Jo. Could I just ask that everyone puts themselves on mute, please? As a lot going on. Sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And this last one, just to give you an example of how someone has used it, someone who's looking for a role. So here, Doug has kind of been quite creative to think, right, I haven't got a role at the moment. I've got my open to work banner on, but I'm also going to use my banner to help me catch the eye of anyone who's looking, to let them know that I'm also looking for my next marketing role. So he's used that space to let people know that he does marketing, strategy, and he's a digital specialist. He's got a call to action there saying, please message me if you have any opportunities that might be of interest. And it's quite clear in that corner on the right that he's, making sure that people know that he's available. And he's used his headline in that way as well. So he has mentioned all those kind of important like keywords that you need to use about marketing, that he's specializes in marketing strategy, brand management, and digital acquisition. He's also added in there that he's open to full-time and interim marketing roles. So it's another way that you can be a little bit more creative with your headline and your banner if you're looking to work, just to help you kind of stand out really again from the thousands of other people who are also looking for work. So any little kind of action that you can take to kind of make your profile pop a little bit more than the next one is really sort of helpful. Then obviously your about section, and I'll go into a bit more detail about this as well to give you a bit more information, but you've got 2,000 words on your about section that you can use to let people know about sort of you, kind of what you do and kind of how you can contribute or help in terms of like what your skills are and how you can offer something to an employer. So what are the things that I guess really sort of stand out about you? So maybe using some examples, you could use some kind of like quotes from sort of recommendations that people, comments that people have made about things that you've done and you've done well. Most of you who are looking for a job, and it might be your first job on the first step on the career ladder, you've probably had some kind of work experience or placements before, and that's where you can think about some of the things that you've done during those sort of like work placements, where you can really highlight some of the skills that you've learned and how you sort of overcome maybe some of those challenges, and sort of turn things into like a real sort of like positive. So, taking people on a little bit of a journey to sort of find out a little bit more about you. But again, sort of your about section, I suppose there's two purposes. One is like it's a really important piece of your profile to help you get found. I think lots of people feel about like, do people actually ever read the about section? Possibly not. Possibly people don't, but some people definitely will. But most importantly, it's where you need to think about how people can find you. So those keywords and things are really important. So first of all, the most important thing to begin with, so anyone who does land on your profile and is going to read your about section, you've got to make it interesting and want them to carry on reading. So think about how you can kind of hook them in from the beginning to write a sort of kind of like attention grabbing kind of first line that's going to make them want to read on and find out a bit more about you. The next thing is like that you really, it's a place where you can really sort of add and show some of the personality that you have, because actually otherwise it just looks like it's, you don't want it to look like too formal, or that you've created it with using AI without actually some input from you. You want to really show kind of like who you are, what your values are, what you're all about, and give, be able somebody reading that to kind of get the right tone and impression about sort of who you are and sort of what you represent. So that personality part showing in your about section is really important too, because again, it makes you helps you to sort of be more memorable, more relatable, and to sort of stand out again more than the next person. Please do write in the first person as well. I quite often see about sections where people have written in the third person, and that doesn't look great at all. So, that is a really sort of basic thing to make sure you get right in the first person. Optimizing for sort of search purposes and SEO, index searches are really, really important. So those keywords we're going to come on to a little bit in a moment and talk about them. But this is really where those, sort of the kind of roles that you're looking for, the roles that you've done, those sort of keywords of what you're kind of looking for, what your skills are, and where you've had some sort of proven sort of success and track record to include these things, whether soft skills or hard skills, kind of in that about section, because that's really important. Another thing to think about is readability. So how this sort of text is set out there, think about sort of using, what I mean as in white spaces, so that you've got line breaks, so that you can really sort of break that body of writing up and make it easy to read. It is okay to use things like emojis as well. Don't go too crazy, I would say, with them. But if you want to use them to kind of break up the text, or to sort of highlight relevant skills, or just certain parts of the body of that sort of about section, that is absolutely fine to do that as well. But yeah, just use it kind of like, use them mindfully so that it's not kind of overdone. And then to end with like some kind of like call to action. So what do you want people to do? How do you want people to contact you? Do you want them to send you a DM to get in touch? Do you have a website that they could, or an email address? Kind of what is it that you're looking for? Have some kind of like call to action at the bottom, so it's really clear to people kind of what it is your purpose and intention is, and sort of how they can get in touch with you. So I mentioned a little bit before about keywords. So these are extremely important to help people find you in searches. And one of the, I suppose, easiest ways to help you kind of work out what the most important keywords to use in your profile, so whether that's in your headline or your about section, have a look in sort of some of the relevant job descriptions that you're thinking about. So if you're searching for jobs, and you're finding and looking through and over sort of job descriptions, have a look through those job descriptions and just kind of highlight some of the key words that particular employer is mentioning that they're looking for. So if you're looking for your ideal role, and you found some jobs on LinkedIn that look like they match nicely, you just sort of go through those kind of job descriptions and just sort of look for the kind of things, the sort of the terms that they're using to describe the role, and what kind of skills they're looking for. And those are the kind of things and words that you need to be using in your about section and in your profile, because that is going to really sort of help boost your chances of being found by any sort of recruiters or potential employers, and sort of direct them to you for the right types of roles. So that's why it's quite important, well, really important to be sort of really specific about those terms and those keywords, so the right kind of like roles are kind of coming your way. I think sometimes like some employers do have quite sort of fluffy kind of job titles, sometimes to sort of like make it stand out and be a bit different from competitors, or appease like, you know, employees because they sound fun and exciting, but actually outside of like that particular company or so, people maybe aren't familiar with those sort of terms, don't understand kind of like what they actually mean. So think really carefully about the kind of like job titles and terms that you're using, so they are actually sort of, you know, well known, widely sort of recognized market value titles and terms that if you were looking on LinkedIn for a job would be the ones that recruiters and employers would be using too. And you can kind of get a good sense of that by just having a search yourself and having a look at the drop down menus to see what kind of things that they are using, to make sure you reflect that in your profile too. So obviously be kind of mindful how you use those keywords, because you don't want to just be sort of listing them for the sake of it, but try to make sure you're kind of like building them into your you know, copy, so that they, you know, sort of read nicely, and that where you can, they're mentioned a few times for the most like important ones, because all of that will help you in terms of that sort of discoverability. So just think really carefully about what words that maybe potential employers or recruiters would be using if they were trying to search for someone like you with your skills, and they're the kind of words that you need to be using in your profile. So last year, I think it was, or potentially the year before, LinkedIn increased the amount of skills too that you can use and add on your LinkedIn profile. So you can currently add up to 100 skills on your LinkedIn profile, which sounds like a lot, but there is a reason why it's actually really useful to try and use as many of those as you possibly can, because the more you use, and if you can use up to 100, fantastic, it gives you a better chance of being found by recruiters and employers who are searching for candidates using those particular skills. So if your profile contains those skills, and certainly if you have like if they're searching for multiple skills and you have them in your profile, you're much more likely to appear obviously in their searches. So I would really sort of, you know, try and sort of utilize that as much as you possibly can. Lots of LinkedIn jobs as well will automatically match the skills as well with the job requirements in the job spec and job description. So the more relevant skills that you have, the much better your chances are of being marked as one of those top applicants. So it's almost like you're being shortlisted. So, you know, that's really key to go through and just make sure they are the right skills. And you can usually see when you're looking on LinkedIn, you can see which, you know, when you're highlighted as a sort of rate as an applicant, whether you're sort of matching well or not.
Wow.
You can see the kind of skills that they are sort of added to the role and mentioning. So just cross-check those and make sure that you you know, have them in, if they are obviously relevant, that you're adding them to your profile too, because that's going to give you a better chance and enhance your chances of being kind of found by the right people. Try to use sort of a mix of soft and hard skills as well, so that they're not all kind of like weighted one way or the other. So if you've got any sort of technical skills, so things like, you know, SEO or strategy, with things like, you know, teamwork too.
You need to go with, so there's another invite for here. Okay, thank you very
Sorry,
much.
Mobalaji, can you please mute? We can all hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Right, and I'm just going to come on to that open to work, because this is another really sort of crucial thing if you're looking for a job at the moment. And there seems to be, I don't know why, on LinkedIn, there seems to be some sort of historic kind of resistance to sometimes people adding that open to work banner. I don't know why, because if you're looking for a job and you're hoping that people will kind of notice you, it's a really easy way, obviously, to sort of highlight that you are, you know, available and looking for work now. So you know, that I would really encourage you, if you're looking for a job, to sort of add that sort of open to work banner to your profile, like now, today, if you haven't done it already. If you're concerned about sort of that sort of showing openly to people, because perhaps you're in a position already and you don't want people to know, you can actually do that more discreetly. You just, there's an open to work tab on your profile. And if you click through that, it's just under where your picture is. It takes you through to another sort of window where you're finding a job, and you can then add your sort of preferences, things like the title of the job that you're looking for, location, sort of when you're looking, what type of role and stuff. But you can also choose who sees that you're open to work. So you can either have the green banner. So if you put all LinkedIn members, it changes to green, and you get that open to work banner appears on your profile. But if you don't want people to know that, you can just select recruiters only. So that green banner doesn't appear. No one can see it in your network, including your employer, but recruiters can. One thing a tip that I would give to anyone who is already doing this, or if you're going to sort of use this kind of feature to sort of help you with your job search, is to regularly go, and I would say probably like once a week, if you've got that open to work banner on, whether it's just to recruiters or it's to all LinkedIn members, I would go in once a week and just turn it off and then on again. Because if you do that, it prompts recruiters, it sends an alert out to recruiters, letting them know that this person's open to work. If you turn it on and just leave it on, like, for weeks on end, you kind of end up getting sort of deprioritized sort of by the algorithm, and you are not so visible to recruiters who are looking. So by switching it off and on again, it just sends out that little reminder and another alert, really, to sort of give you a little sort of boost again to help you get seen by sort of more recruiters, and just make them aware that you are active and looking for work. I'm going to just touch on now sort of just looking about how you can build your network on LinkedIn and be more visible too, because having just having a great profile is brilliant, because that's your kind of like, shop like window, and that's sort of optimizing your profile on LinkedIn to help people search for you and find you. But in terms of trying to be sort of more visible on the platform and building the right kind of connections and making inroads with the right network is equally important. So it's kind of like a bit like a jigsaw, and it's kind of all the different pieces like put together to help you kind of make a complete jigsaw, so that things are kind of working nice and you're building the sort of bigger picture. So LinkedIn and conversations are really, really important. So it's like a big online networking opportunity for people. So like a big, online sort of event where you get the opportunity to sort of make new contacts with people, find people who are sort of, in the relevant industries that you perhaps like want to work with or sort of collaborate with. So you don't want to just kind of sit in the corner and wait for people to come to talk to you. You've got to be sort of proactive about getting out there and actively joining sort of conversations, letting people know kind of who you are, and showing people that you've got some, value and some useful insights that you can, and skills that you can share with them at all as well. So it's just kind of like posting content and sort of leaving it. That isn't going to be enough. They've got that engagement part, and those conversations are really, really important as well. So you being able to sort of show other people sort of who are relevant to your sort of industry and potential network that you sort of value their opinions and that you're interested in building relations is really important. If you are sort of sharing content, things like, really simple, obvious things, but sometimes we forget them. Things like replying to comments when you've posted are really important. Looking at where you can perhaps like add meaningful comments on other people's posts and asking questions really can help you to sort of build trust with other people, and you are sort of doing, sort of ticking the right kind of like boxes and taking the right actions to be a really sort of positive and useful member of the LinkedIn community in your relevant field, and people will start to kind of notice that. So some easy ways for starting conversations, because I think this is something that people obviously like, and you know, I can understand this too. Sometimes feel a bit sort of nervous about doing, like, how do I start these conversations? And there can be some really sort of like easy ways in to do this so that it isn't really daunting and it's not scary. So trying to sort of maybe start conversations with the right people. So people that you perhaps want to kind of, you know, get to know more because they may be sort of work in an industry or with an organization that you'd like to find out sort of more about. The more kind of like positive kind of like conversations you have, the more positive like signals that sends out to the algorithm. And by sort of having conversations with those people, you start to sort of appear in that sort of larger sort of wider network of their own network as well. So you kind of like that kind of like you have that kind of butterfly effect, that sort of knock-on effect that, you know, by speaking to one person, you know, 10 people in their network get to see that. And if you then start engaging with those people, those 10 people, their network start to see more about you as well. So it's kind of like that kind of like domino effect. The more people you're having these conversations with, the more chances you'll have of sort of getting seen, I guess, by the right people. So doing something as simple as just like leaving a sort of, you know, meaningful and insightful comment on somebody's post or replying to a comment that they've left on somebody else's post is a really easy way to start a conversation without it feeling awkward at all. So, you know, if somebody posts, you know, share some content that you think is really interesting and useful, you know, add a comment to let them know why you think that. Or if you see that they've made a comment on somebody else's, perhaps it's some kind of like industry stats or something like that, or you know, something that you've, you know, found interesting too, you know, reply to their comment in that post, maybe sort of backing up that you know, agree with what they're saying, and that you'd like to you know, sort of add some examples, or you'd like to find out more about something that they've mentioned. And then it's much easier for you to kind of like make that next step to connect with them. So it's a really, you know, good opportunity then for you to be able to send them a connection request and sort of start maybe slightly deeper and more sort of valuable conversations through DMs and get to know them a bit easier. So it's just by making these little kind of steps to begin with and thinking about how you can kind of get in front of the right people. And it's then much more natural way to kind of then move to connecting with somebody and sort of chatting to them in their DMs rather than going straight to the DMs when they think, I don't know who this person is, and perhaps are not really sort of prepared to kind of give you the time of day. So think about how you can do that as well so that it's a kind of much easier way in. Connecting is obviously really important. You know, you don't have to have a really massive network to get really good kind of results and be found and sort of find the right people and opportunities on LinkedIn. I think more than having just a huge network, it's much more valuable for you to think about connecting with the right people so that they are not really sort of like random connections. They're people that you kind of thought of because they're in the right industries, or they perhaps are connected to the right industries or organizations in some way. So think really carefully about that too. You've got, depending on, some accounts will have like 5 allowance and some will have 10, depending on how long you've been sort of registered and a member on LinkedIn. It seems to sort of vary from people to people without much kind of like reason why, but you'll have like 5 to 10 personalized connection invitations that you can send to people. So use them sort of wisely, and that's a month, but you could send up to 100 requests per week, but only 5 to 10 that can actually have a personal message as well. So again, if you've been speaking to someone and sort of chatting in a you know, the comments on a post, that makes it much easier to send a connection request without a personalized message, because they've already kind of started to get to know you a little bit. And then once you've connected with someone, you can send them obviously as many messages as you like, and there's no kind of limit there. With content, you want to kind of aim to sort of post at least sort of once or twice a week. Try to do it on the same days each week and times if you can, just because then people get to know and are familiar with when you're kind of like showing up and when to expect you to kind of share content. And try to share sort of relatable content that your ideal kind of audience, so the people you're trying to target, and get in front of are going to sort of value. Let's put some like examples here of some things that you can think about, so with your content. So try to have like maybe 3 to 5 like content themes that you stick to. And your content, think about how it can sort of like educate people, or maybe entertain, inspire, inform, and then potentially convert. But that's perhaps later down the line, once you've kind of warmed, people up and they know a little bit more about you. But that convert is then sort of taking action, something that you kind of would like them to do. So one of the things that you could use is like about your story. So think about insights and sort of looking back at things like maybe your sort of early sort of career, maybe your education journey, like so far, things that inspire you, what your goals are. Share sort of those types of posts with your audience. Things like social proof. So again, if this is your first job you're kind of going for, perhaps on your like work experience, like placement, you've got some kind of like recommendations that you could use, some sort of feedback that you had that you could use in a post, and sort of mention maybe that place and person where you were doing that kind of like placement. You can mention things like courses you completed, and awards and certificates, showing those extra things that you've done, sort of go like that extra mile in your role. Things like industry use can be sort of really useful. So highlighting that you're keeping up on sort of like trends and things that are going on in the industry. So sharing things like studies and surveys and statistics, and they're a really good way to sort of drive people to kind of like have more conversations with you about things as well. So you can ask opinions and ask people sort of like what do they think about things, and do they think this is a good thing or a bad thing, and all of those kind of like sort of questions and sort of around sort of industry related topics kind of drive people to sort of want to get involved and comment and add their opinion and their sort of authority on that sort of field too. So that can be a really good way to think about types of content that you can share. So community is another one. So perhaps where you're sort of showing support for maybe some of your connections or others that you collaborated with. Or perhaps you've got like a particular interest, or you're supporting a charity or something that you can use. So just give you, again, a bit more of a flavor about you and your personality, and sort of what you do in terms of your values, your ethics, and kind of like what you kind of like represent. And another is, so if you've got particular skills, particularly if you're working in somewhere like a creative space, this can be a really great way to showcase some of the skills that you haven't maybe yet got to put into practice yet in a job, but you've learned them and you're able to use them. So giving sort of helpful tips, or maybe sort of explainers, like you could do little videos or posts, really sort of showcasing your expert skills and things that you found that are really sort of like helpful. So it could be like tools you've used, shortcuts that you found, those kind of things that will help people to maybe save time and do things, or a better job kind of with things as well. Other things that you can do are, attend LinkedIn events. So there's thousands of LinkedIn events running every single week. And they can be a really good way to meet people, and you can have a look and see who else is attending. So if it's the right kind of relevant industry, make a note of those the other attendees that look of interest to you, and send them a connection request afterwards and message them. And that can be a really great way to kind of meet more of the right people, and sort of look out for those kind of events that are going to be sort of made up of the right audiences and the right kind of network and industries that you want to kind of like step into. And then also groups. So there are, I think they've got quite a bad rep on LinkedIn, but there are some really good groups too. So if you can find the good ones, you might have to do a bit of like testing and sort of trial and error. But these can be a really good way to sort of find leads as well. And you can find some sort of really specific ones where there's some sort of crossover with different industries, but there'll be relevant people to your kind of network, but also more specific ones where they can be really helpful for like advice and tips and recommendations and introductions as well. So think about adding value to the group. So how you can sort of share interesting information in there. Think about how, sort of offering sort of advice and getting involved in conversations about perhaps sort of topical articles and news. Yeah, it's a really a good and sort of safe, positive space to kind of get to know other kind of LinkedIn members that could kind of help you somewhere down the line, and you perhaps the other way around as well. So it's kind of like showing how you can offer genuine value within that group so that you can kind of build trust and build your reputation in there, which can often lead to sort of introductions as well, so and recommendations. So that's a really useful place to kind of like hang out and sort of test the water there too. So really your key takeaways from this for you is thinking about sort of optimizing your profile. So that personalized banner, photo, that eye-catching headline, and an engaging about section. And not forgetting, although make sure you remember keywords are so important, skills, and also that open to work part as well. And get involved is the other thing. So think really carefully about, conversations, community, and collaboration where you are, because all of those things put together, that is going to really sort of help you get found on LinkedIn, spotted by the right people, and help you to sort of build a sort of meaningful and more kind of engaging kind of network. Right. So I'm going to stop kind of talking there and then see if we've got any questions. So I don't know if I have a look at the chat and see if I've got any coming through. There were quite a few that I had sort of before. Tamika, I don't know if you've been sort of keeping an eye on seeing sort of if there's anything in particular coming through, but if anyone has anything now that they would like to ask, then feel free to send them through now. So I'm just going through to see if I can see anything here. Brad, I don't know if this is helpful to you or not, but I can see that you've put something about sort of open to work making you look desperate. I don't think it does. I don't understand why. I think as a recruiter, you certainly don't think that at all. I don't know why there seems to be this kind of misconception about it looking desperate. It doesn't. It's just a really clear way. And I think I showed you in that sort of search when you're pulling up names that you can clearly see if someone has got that green banner on, that's probably the first person that you're going to click on to. So to have a look through and sort of find out a bit more. So it certainly isn't like a desperate measure at all. But if you're concerned about it, then obviously there's the option that I showed you where you can do that so that people can't see apart from recruiters. So, that's obviously something that you can do as well. And then I can see, yeah, Inez is saying about sort of connecting. I've got some other questions. Let me see if I can find.
Yeah, sorry,
Tamika sent me some.
Yeah,
no, it's fine. I think you sent me some before.
I did. I was looking. I feel like you addressed quite a lot of them.
Yeah, there was one actually that somebody asked that I thought was quite a good one. Actually, it was somebody was asking me how to sort of look for relevant jobs that haven't been viewed by lots of people, and that's quite an important one because you obviously want to kind of like try and apply for ones that haven't been kind of viewed by lots of people and lots of people are applying. So there is a way of doing that. If you go to the job section on LinkedIn and you look for a particular job and location, if you go onto all filters, you can actually scroll down to number of applicants and you can select, there's a little toggle, you can select under 10 applicants, and then it brings up all the jobs that have had less than 10 applicants. So that's, I think, a really like good tip maybe to do so that you can see, because quite often people sort of do sort of jump on the ones that are kind of showing and maybe more prominent. There will be lots and lots of applicants, and then I think it can sometimes be a bit disheartening to think, how is your application going to get noticed? So that's like a good tip to try to sort of spot jobs that have got only few applicants, that might hopefully then increase your chances if you apply. And the other thing is obviously looking at the date posted and making sure sort of any ones that are under like 24 hours are good ones to obviously sort of look at and go for.
I thought an interesting one is quite relevant today with like ChatGPT and everything. Is there a way that you use to make sure that posts aren't super AI, I suppose. Like for those, I know for me, my writing style can veer into that, and there are a few questions about that. And also in turn, like what the general tone should be. So we had a few that were like how to not make it too braggy, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure if there is such thing as too braggy on LinkedIn. Like where is that happy medium?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, firstly with this sort of AI, I think it's if you are using that, so are you saying to me your just natural style is similar, or you're saying you are using AI and then but you want to make sure that it doesn't look like you're using AI?
I was saying my natural style is very similar
Natural
to
style.
AI, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I mean for lots of people it will be as well because obviously, apps like ChatGPT are mimicking how people create content. So it is going to be a bit like that anyway, but I know I can probably spot a ChatGPT post on LinkedIn because there's certain terms that and sort of words, phrases, a few things that it will use which kind of like identify that that's potentially AI created. So I think probably the best advice I would give for something like that is to kind of read out your post yourself. So read it aloud and see, does it actually sound like you and how you would speak if you were talking? And if it doesn't, then I would tweak it so that it does, because I think you should have that sort of conversational kind of tone to the post that you create. So it does actually sound like you if you were talking. And that's how I would sort of like my sort of best tip really, I think, to sort of try and avoid sounding like it's AI related. And then what was the other one about braggy as well? So I
Yeah.
think again, it's like it, I think you've got to kind of like think about sort of how you come across to people. So I think there's ways of sharing sort of like your kind of wins and things that you've done really well without sounding sort of braggy. So again, sort of maybe it is sometimes sort of reading it back and sort of just checking over the kind of tone about that, but maybe thinking about the kind of like the sort of framework of like how you create that as well. So sort of putting a bit more sort of like context behind it as well. So rather just saying I'm brilliant at kind of whatever it is, sort of why is that so important to you? Like how did you sort of what challenges did you overcome to get there? Maybe just putting a bit of context kind of behind that to sort of back up sort of why you're sharing that particular news, because it shouldn't come across as braggy. And to be like fair, I would say people quite like sharing people's wins and sort of celebrating with them on LinkedIn. So if you've got something really positive to say about something you've done really well, I think it's absolutely well within your rights to post about it and let other people know. So I wouldn't sort of worry too much about things sounding braggy.
And there was another interesting question that came through as well, which was where do you stop when it comes to your job history? Like, for instance, on mine, I've got that I worked in Primark in like 2015. Like, where does it end, or does it end at all? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I mean, yeah, I certainly wouldn't. I'm thinking about some of the things that I did sort of years ago. I was like a swimming teacher at one point when I was a teenager and things like I definitely wouldn't sort of add anything like that. So I would just keep it sort of relevant. So if it's stuff that, if you like from school, it depends where you are in your career journey. So if you've just kind of left school and actually you don't have much work experience, you want to kind of utilize, the sort of work experience you've had or any kind of voluntary experience or any examples you can to sort of showcase your skills and what you can do. So that is going to be different. However, if you're sort of a bit further along in your career journey, I think there's, would certainly get to a point where you don't need to like include some of those. You want to make it more relevant to the industry you work in and the sort of skills that you have. So I would then start probably leaving some of those sort of early sort of jobs and sort of part-time work and where you're first sort of kind of starting out, leaving them off. You do not have to have every, it's not actually your CV. This isn't. It's this is your sort of professional kind of like profile, and where you sort of networking on the platform. So you can choose sort of what you want to and what you don't want to sort of include on there. But I would, what you do want to look is you've got like a solid kind of work history or explanation where you've got any like gaps. I know on mine I've got some gaps where I had sort of career breaks because I had like young children at the time and stuff. So just make sure they're kind of like explained, but you definitely don't have to add like all of your jobs on there, especially if they're not relevant at all to what you're doing now.
Absolutely. Thank you. I was just wondering if anyone else had any like last questions before we wrap up. Because a lot of the questions we received, like I was just going through them now, you've addressed in your presentation. So yeah, I just don't want it to be redundant. But yeah, if you guys have any other final questions,
I've got one actually from Chloe, who's just sent one to me saying a connection similar to friend requests or follows on other social media platforms. And they're kind of not really. If I sort of think about sort of my kind of network, they're probably a bit more of a mixture. I think on other, so if you were looking at things like, well, if I was comparing, say, Instagram, for example, you're probably more likely to have like lots of like maybe sort of friends sort of following you on that platform, whereas sort of LinkedIn is obviously a professional kind of networking platform. So you might have your friends and you might have colleagues or ex kind of like workmates on there as well, but you need to really sort of be more strategic with who you're thinking about connecting with. So connect with people that are going to give you some kind of value. So whether that is someone you could collaborate with, someone you could learn from, someone that might potentially have a sort of, you know, job opportunity for you. Just think about sort of why you're connecting with them. And there will be lots of crossover. And it's not to say you cannot. No, you absolutely can connect with your friends if you want to. There's no rule saying that you can't. But I would think, you know, the kind of people that you connect with has a big impact on, you know, who sees your content and sort of how sort of wide your profile gets pushed, like whether it's to the right people or the wrong people in terms of like who you want to get seen and sort of put in front of. So think, you know, just be sort of mindful of that and who you're connecting with, and try and sort of, you know, have some kind of sense of sort of purpose and intention, so they are the right kind of target audiences for you.